at SIA, and I want to thank you all for jumping on and joining us for this virtual workshop. Now, some of you might have seen that it said Elliot Hansen, who is a trainer at Western Oregon University and is a great trainer, but he could not make it today. Something fell through for him, so we had to switch plans, and we asked Rich Hansen to come on and do this workshop, and he agreed, and we are very thankful for him. And I'm very thankful for Rich Hansen. He has been a mentor of mine for quite a few years, and he has been a trainer with Western Oregon University and has done a lot of national work as well. But I can let him introduce himself. But we are just very thankful for Rich for stepping in, and it's going to be a great workshop. He's going to teach you a lot of things. Before we start, I want to talk about a couple things. First is make sure that you are on mute. I think our settings on this Zoom account has been switched because usually you come in muted. I don't think that's the case this time. We've probably heard a lot of different things going on in the background. So please mute yourself. You don't know what's going on in your background. You might think it's quiet. You might be like, I'm in a quiet office, but someone can barge in. And when we hear that background noise, it is very distracting for the presenter. So please put yourself on mute unless the presenter asks you to go, unmute and say something, which Rich will have you interacting. So that might be one way that he does that. Another thing, chat is to be used for two things only. One is to answer any questions from the presenter. If Rich asks you a question, he says put into chat, please use it. It is also used to ask a question to the presenter. If he is going through something and you have a question about it, please put it into chat. I might stop Rich where he's at and ask that question, or we might wait till the end. It depends on where he's at. How close we are to a break or not. We will take a little break here in the middle. And then if you don't get the question answered right away, just know that that question, if you put into chat, it will be asked at the end of the session. So please do not hesitate to ask questions. Also, for people watching on a recording, there will be a secret word that we will have to say. It will happen sometime through this presentation. I'm not going to say when, but just know that there is a secret word. It's one way that we make sure that people watching on recording have watched the video. Also, want to remind you of the ATSIA conference in July. Let me get to that slide here. It is going to be in Billings, Montana from July 20th to 23rd. Hope you can all make it. It is relatively close to Yellowstone, so maybe you can go check out Yellowstone as well. So I am now done talking, and I'm going to stop my share, and I'm going to hand it over to Rich Hansen. So again, Rich, thank you for stepping in. Really appreciate it. I'm really excited to hear what you're going to have to say.
So we have a lot of folks on this call today, and I'm really excited about being here. It's been a while since I've actually been in the classroom, and so I might be a little rusty. So please hold me accountable. I will try my best to make sure that we get through this in a easy manner, and that you can find it enjoyable, and we'll intersperse a little humor in it. Tim was my Padawan or whatever it was. No, we go back a long time, and we have had a wonderful relationship working together to just further the driver education. And I'm really excited about being able to make this presentation to you today. So I'm hardwired in. I should be able to show the videos pretty quickly without any issues as soon as we upload and get them in place. And we are working about coaching and correcting. And so I want you to go. There's a thing where you can have a react button. I think it is where you can raise your hand. How many of you have been coaches of a sport or debate or something of that nature? Would you just kind of raise your hand right now? Let me see. I think there's a raise your hand down at the bottom. Fred has. Okay, good. I'm seeing some hands going up. Excellent. Amanda, thank you. Okay, awesome. And thumbs and thumbs up and different things like that. That's great. And it's really important. We've done coaching before, so we know what it takes to actually coach somebody, correct? And and actually deliver something to a student so that they can be successful in the car when we're riding with them. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's where we have the most enjoyment working with our kids because we actually see their abilities to um, get through their drives and meet the objectives that we're trying to teach them. So I'm really excited about how we can now go through this and work on our presentation. So I am going to start my presentation. I'm going to share my screen first of all, and we'll share desktop too. Okay, and then I am going to Yep, we're going to do that. And we're going to open up um, our coaching and correcting, and we're going to start a presentation right now. So this is fundamentals of behind the wheel. And fundamentals of behind the wheel is something that when we say fundamentals, we say these are priority items in which we have to address the things that we're trying to accomplish. And so as we're going through this, please remember that you probably have covered some of these things and you've gone through some of these things. But what I want you to do is I want you to think every time I go to a conference or every time I go to a workshop, I can take at least one thing new back to where I'm doing my job. Okay. So don't dismiss this idea that oh, sure, I know how to coach and correct. It's not a problem. I can do this. But what I want you to do is I want you to think in terms of how can I improve my coaching? How can I improve my correcting? How can I improve the way that I actually deliver my driver education to my students? Now, I want to tell you, Tim said I could finish my introduction. I have a really long introduction, but what I just want to say is I got into driver education because I thought I could make a difference. I got into driver education because our program needed some improvement. And the guy that was running our program knew that I had the ability to change the way driver education was delivered in our program. And when we did that, we became just a model program that the rest of the programs in the state of Oregon started looking at and saying, okay, we can be that way. So I do bring a lot of information and a lot of skills to this particular endeavor here. So our objectives are real simple. Describe the three parts of an in-car lesson and understand the instructor's responsibility for preparation, delivery, and risk management. There is kind of a saying I use that please excuse me if I offend anybody, but it's piss poor preparation produces piss poor performance. And one of the things that I will tell you is that as a longtime driver education teacher and instructor, what we run into is that we see driver ed teachers kind of just mailing it in. And we don't take seriously our preparation for getting ready to deliver a risk management lesson. And what I want you to think now is this: I can make a difference as I begin to work with my teams and I start focusing on my preparation. Because as I do that, I start picking up new ideas on how I can effectively deliver my lessons. So preparation begins with a lesson plan. Remember, a lesson plan is extremely important. It has a route for us to really follow so that we can see what we're going to accomplish with our teams. It has objectives. It has clear objectives on what we want to accomplish. If we don't know what we're going to do, if we don't have an idea of what our objectives are going to be, we can basically conduct a lesson kind of by accident. We just hope that things show up and hope that we actually accomplish the things that we want to do. So we also have what's called a drive route that goes with it. Now, many of you use the same kind of route over and over and over again. when I first started, we didn't have drive routes. I was like riding in car with teens. What I would do is I would review the things that we had to cover. And then I just start thinking about, okay, well, this is where I live. These are the routes that I can go on. And these are the things that I can cover. And what I really missed out on was prescribed locations with prescribed learning activities that I could see the kids do and then evaluate what the kids were going to do. Okay. There's a 4-step teaching and learning process. Y'all remember that? Put in chat what you think was the 4-step learning and teaching process, if you would mind. Okay. Do that in chat right now. Anybody? I got 2 new messages. Great, Miller. Okay. Thanks, Sylvia. Um, keep going. Anybody else? Put in chat what you think are the 4-step teaching and learning process. Y'all forget it? Lesson plan, driver out. Okay. Activities evaluation. Well, that's a good idea. Thanks, Lori. Explain, show, do, review. Okay. All right. Listen, show, explain, prep, presentation, application, evaluation. Okay, that's pretty close, Fred. Lesson, okay. Okay. So here's what, thank you for everybody on the chat. I appreciate that. Um, here's what I want to do is that I want to talk about that real quick. The 4-step learning and teaching process is here we go. Introduction, which is the motivation piece. Remember, it's motivation, presentation, application, evaluation. Okay. Some had it pretty close. Chris has it, prepare, explain, apply, evaluate. It's pretty much the right way to go, Chris. But the thing is this, it's motivation. We want to motivate the kids to get them thinking about what we're going to be learning. If I just go up and say, all right, let's find out what's going on, see what's going happening with their teens, and we'll just get in the car and we'll just go for a drive, you know? But I want to motivate them to say, okay, oh man, today we are going to have such a fun time in our drive because we're going to really look at some new things that connect with what we learned from the previous lesson. So we're going to pick up some new ideas and how this all works together. All right. Then the next thing we've got is we got presentation, application, and presentation and application. Well, what's presentation? Presentation is simply the idea of we're looking at how we actually do a particular maneuver. For instance, if we're going to teach steering and we want to teach push-pull steering or push steering, we may have a steering wheel, a model steering wheel in our car, and I might say, okay, we're going to go up to say 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and we're going to pull down to 6 o'clock, and then we're going to push back up to 12 o'clock, and then we're going to pull back down to 6 o'clock. That's the presentation. And then the application is might have the kids actually model that and practice it when they're doing their drive in the parking lot so that they can actually try it. And then you can evaluate them on the drive because that's the last piece. And that comes with the debrief. And that's what we have with that. Okay. So the sequence of a lesson is real simple. We do the lesson introduction, we do the pre-entry approach, and the pre-drive procedure. Really critical that we have these things involved in our lesson for our kids. We want them to see and learn as they're going through this whole lesson. So greet the students. Yo, how you all doing? No, that's only for my friends in the South. Okay. No, it's greet the students. Greet them at the car or greet them in the classroom. Greet them wherever you meet them. And then in Oregon, one of the things that we do is we require that we verify their permit. In other words, they have to have a permit before they drive with it. Now, I know some other places, like I think in North Carolina and North Dakota and different places like that, they're not required to have a permit. But and that's all right, but just verify that it's them. Find out, make sure it's them and not their twin brother that they sent to the lesson. Okay. And Tennessee doesn't need a result. Thank you, Jubilee. Okay. So make sure they have it and perform the pre-entry checks. Now, this is important for us to kind of see what's going on with the kids because we pre-assess their skill level. I want to tell you, I made a mistake once in my life. That was when I thought I made a mistake, but I didn't. Oh, wait, that's not true. I made a mistake when I took a girl who I really didn't do anything with her pre-assessing her skill level or anything. She was the first drive, and we were gonna practice turn precision turns, right and left turns in a neighborhood. So in order to get to this neighborhood, we had to drive 35 miles an hour to the first stoplight, turn right at the next stoplight, stop at a stop sign, proceed ahead, stop in the next sign, and then turn right at the next road. And that was a 35-mile-an-hour road. As we're driving along, I'm kind of noticing she's a little, she's a little skittish, but not too bad. And then as we approach the turn where I want to go to, I say at the next intersection, turn right. So she turns right at about 30 miles an hour into this neighborhood. At that point in time, I had to hit my brake, reach the wheel, and turn to straighten her out because we were headed for a mailbox that was posted in cement and had like that neighborhood box where they got like 10 boxes in it. And that was like I also blessed myself as I was there just because I knew that I just dodged a bullet here. Well, what I found out was that she'd only driven 45 minutes in the previous lesson. So I should have made her drive the second drive because we would have been already in that neighborhood, but I didn't. So I had to creep back to the school and then I had her practice working on transition pegs. So it's critical we pre-assess who's got the best skills and where are we going to go because we may have a 35 mile an hour exit or I mean street that where our school is on and we have to go on to that street and that skill level has to be high enough that the student can handle that. Decide which student's going to drive and then with that sometimes you can actually drive to a complex location and then switch places with a team driver and go from there. Okay.
Hey, Rich,
Yes, Tim?
I sent you a link in your email, so why don't you check that for the video? I
All
think I'm
right.
gonna do
Take a
it twice.
moment, powder your nose
Okay.
for just a second. Okay. Tim sent me a link. Okay. In my email. Let me go to my email. Did you find out what's wrong? Oh, you sent it to Box. Thank you.
I just don't think it was working as you put it into Google Drive. So
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Tim, you got me right at the right moment. Okay.
I'm
I know. I know. Okay, so again, which complex start locations? Okay, here we go. This is Dominique.
it worked on
It's
my end. It
what's that?
worked on my end. Here,
Tim,
I
I'm
can
gonna ask.
always,
Tim, can I ask you to share your screen?
yep.
Okay, let's go back to that, and then everybody, don't worry about it. It's my fault here. I'm gonna stop my share. Okay, there you go, Tim. It's all yours.
Make sure I'm sharing sound.
Hey, good to see you guys. Joey, Devontae. Let's see your permits before we get going. That's what's on you. Okay, so before we get going, let's do a walk around the car. Anybody remember what we're looking for as we walk around the vehicle?
Yeah, we're looking for imperfections on the vehicle.
Imperfections on the vehicle, like what? Give me an example. Let's walk.
Any safety hazards. We need to make sure that the tires are all in good shape, they're fully functional. We need to make sure and identify that our lights are totally fine. Really making sure that they're functional, capable.
Okay, good. Joey, what's something else we're looking for?
We want to identify some safety hazards such as broken glass.
Okay, broken glass, good. I like it.
If there's oil on the ground coming from the car, it's probably not a good sign. So.
Okay, good. Anybody see any oil, broken glass, anything that concerns you?
Sounds pretty good.
Good. Anything else you might want to check?
Nobody's in the vehicle.
Nobody is in our car. That is good. Okay, so I heard you guys did rock, paper, scissors earlier, and Devontae won, so you're driving first. I'm going to have you unlock the car, but then give me back the key and I'll meet you in there. Perfect. And then if you would just unlock all the buttons for us.
Okay, there are a couple things that I want you to note on that. Thanks, Tim. You've rescued me. The other one I have, it's okay, but so there's a lot of things that went on here, and I think it's important for us to remember that she's asking the students to kind of figure out what's really going on with the car. She said, "Look for broken glass," or he said, "Look for broken glass." He said, "Look for." Look for oil leakage, the tires, the position of the tires, looking in the car. I always look at the car and I say, land shark, dun, 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 dun. Is there somebody in the back that might attack you if you got in the car? Make sure you just check that out. And it's, I mean, it's critical that they get this down. The other thing is that you notice that she made the student hand the key back to her. Would you put in chat as to why she did that? Could steal the car. Good. Yes, Jubilee. Don't want students to take off. Absolutely. Yep. And she needs to be responsible for that. Excellent. Yeah, it wouldn't be the first time that kids would take off and leave the instructor behind. There was I was teaching a class, and one of the instructors said that they left the kids in the car after they got gas, and they went in to pay the bill. And guess what the teen student did with the other student in the car? Took off, went for a joyride, left the teacher standing in the store waiting for them to come back. And man, what a mess that was. And so the student was suspended. The teacher, I think, got a reprimand. And so it was a really important thing to remember that the keys stay in your hand when you're not in the car so that the kids can't take it. Good answers on the chat. Thank you. Tim, next slide, if you would, please. So we can practice this. This was designed for us to actually do when we had a live class where we had students face to face or teachers face to face. But we can't do that right now. I will say one thing that's really important, and that is kids love to get complimented for doing the right job. Not for doing just anything, but for doing the right job. So make sure if you compliment them for saying, nice job on picking up on the idea of looking in the back of the car. Make sure you compliment them. Okay. So let's go ahead. Next slide, Tim, please. So pre-drive procedure. You enter the car. Now, why would the first thing you do lock the door? Put in chat why you think it would be lock the door. Safety, sure. Good job. So no one else enters. Thanks, Sydney. Yeah, yeah. You want to be secure, Kevin, right? Especially from those guys coming that might want to steal the car. Yep, exactly. Thank you, Mark, Logan. Yep. Okay, all of you. Sean, nice job. You don't want people coming in. You don't want people now. When we have all three of us in the car, or four of us if we're running three students, if we have all of us in there, likelihood's pretty small. But what I want you to remember is that when these kids are alone, and especially the smaller kids that are on their own, is that they want to make sure that they get in the car, lock the door first thing. And I still do that as an old fart. And it's just out of habit. I want to prevent it from anybody getting in the car. And then Steve says, yeah, and also prevent the door opening on a collision. Yes, that is a securing mechanism that the car has been built into it. My dad was a state police officer back in the 50s, and he said, the door locks don't really help keep the door closed. That's because they weren't designed to have such a solid mechanism that they do now. And so, anyway, it's a great way to go. So then you adjust the seat. Why do you adjust the seat first? Think about that. I'll ask you a little bit later. You set up your head restraint, your steering wheel, your safety belt. And then you look at your mirrors, you do your ignition, okay? And then you release the emergency brake. So, oops, I just took it. All right, next slide, Tim. Here is Dominique asking, that's actually her nephew, about L Smile. We use L Smile in Oregon, so it's pretty cool.
Do you remember L Smile from class?
I do.
Perfect. What's the L for?
Lock the doors.
Awesome. Good job. Joey, what's the S stand for?
Seat belt, seat, and steering wheel.
Nice. So seat belt, seat adjustment. You feel like you're a good distance away from the steering wheel?
Yeah, I think I'm a great distance.
Perfect. And the M, what did we check for the M?
Mirrors.
Mirrors. How are your mirrors?
They're looking good.
Good. Actually, I need to do my rear view mirror as well. Perfect. I'm going to find you in this one. Okay, good deal. And Joey, the I.
Ignition.
Ignition. Let's go ahead and get the car started. Get some air going before you guys die. And what is the next letter?
L, which is for headlights.
Headlights, perfect. And the last one, Joey?
E-brake.
E-brake, good job. Yes. Parking brake. L Smile, L Smilp, same deal, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so before.
Okay, so it's a procedure, and you can have a different procedure if you wish. It's just that this is we lock, we seat, we adjust, and then we turn on our headlights and we ignition and release the brake. Now, one thing I will say is that when you guys are in, I don't know, say North Dakota, and it's about 95 degrees, and you get in the car, and the first thing that you need to do is you got to get the air flowing. So you might change some of that, but just make sure that you go through all of those elements so that you safely secure the car, get it ready to drive, and then the next part is get ready to do the pre-drive. Okay, so next slide, Tim. So now we've got the introduction. We're going to do the motivation. We're going to actually help the students find out what they need to know on this drive, because they don't know. They could think that you're going to take them out someplace in the country road or something, but we need to give them the introduction. And so Dominique is going to give the introduction on this next lesson. Okay. And then it's a brief overview. We need to tell them this is what you're going to learn. If we don't tell them that, then they're not going to keep in mind when we address that they're going to need to focus on that. Then give a general description of the route. Tell them where we're going to go. We're going to go in downtown Tigard. We're going to go on McDonald. We're going to go around Templeton School. They all knew it because they grew up there, that sort of thing. So they know exactly where we're headed. And then the benefits of the behaviors that we're going to. Why is it a benefit that we do precision turns? Why is it that we learn how to make smooth braking? All of those things are extremely important. So let's see what Dominique has to say here. Oops, wait, I got one more. Explain the activities. Some of you have sheets that you hand out to the students, and so you're going to hand those things out and have them go over. Then you're going to check for understanding. Do you have any questions? Do you understand what I'm talking about? And then I need to talk about command and control. I need to make sure that students understand that I have secondary control of the car. If they mess up, I need to get on that real quick. And so I'm going to talk about the brake. I'm going to talk about taking control of the steering wheel. So now I think that's the next slide. Let's go.
Okay. All right. So, well, welcome today, Josh and Kylie. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to do a lesson on intersections. The majority of crashes occur at intersections. Why do you think that is, Kylie?
People not paying attention.
Okay. Not paying attention. What would cause them not to pay attention?
Cell phones or talking to other passengers.
Okay. Good. Why else do you think crashes might happen at an intersection, Josh? What do you think?
Usually people think they can just a lot of people run late yellow lights.
Okay.
They usually run them too late. Usually people pull out right when the green starts and hit them.
Okay.
So that's not good.
Exactly. So those are some real key elements to why crashes happen. The other reason is that sometimes people don't search and scan an intersection. Remember in your class you talked a little bit about scanning an intersection before you go, and there were several things that you needed to do.
Yeah.
Okay? How do you scan an intersection? When you see an intersection out in your target area, what are you supposed to do?
When you see it, well, you scan left to right, correct?
Left, front, right.
Left,
is there
front,
something
right.
else you should do first?
Probably you should slow down.
Well, you were kind of giving it away by looking right here.
Looking right in the mirror. Oh yeah, you want to check your rear zone.
Oh, okay.
Make sure no one's going to come up fast on you.
Exactly. So we're going to check our rear zone first when we see an intersection up there. And then we're going to, as we approach the intersection, if it's a moving intersection, how do we search it? If we're moving through it without having to stop, how do we search it?
Isn't it left, forward, right?
Left, front, right. Correct. What angle? Do you remember what angle it was?
Isn't it deep left, 90 degrees?
Now, if we're moving, it's 45 degrees.
45.
Left, front, and right.
And 45 right.
That's correct.
Okay.
Kylie, if we're stopped, how should we search an intersection?
Deep 90.
Which way? 90 degrees what?
Left, front, right.
Perfect. Okay. So we're going to solve the intersection by, first of all, finding it in our target area, solving it by determining if it's a controlled and uncontrolled intersection. And then as we get to the 4-second danger zone, or just before, we're going to search left, front, right, and make sure the intersection is clear, correct?
Okay.
All right. And we're going to control the rear by making sure that we check our rear zone before we start making decisions. All right?
Sounds good.
Cool. So that's our objectives today. So what I'd like us to do is we're going to pull out, and as you pull out, we're going to go to the right. When I say, just after we kind of get going, I want you to come off the gas, and I'm going to just check the instructor brake to make sure it works.
Sure.
Okay? So let's go ahead and go. Perfect. Signal to the right. Excellent. Just this one more time here. Good. All right. So come off the gas. Check the brake. And that's perfect. Okay, you have the brake?
Got it.
Awesome. Good. At the exit up here, turn right.
Okay.
Okay, ask a question. Why do you check the brake before you leave the parking lot? Go ahead and put it in chat as to why you would check the brake when you leave the parking lot, before you leave it. Yeah, Mark says, being sure it works. Stay alive, because the one time it didn't work. Yeah, prevent collisions, confirmation. Yep, all of those things to ensure it's functioning, operational for safety. And I'll tell you one reason that we still check it to this day is because we had an incident where one of our instructors was going through an intersection. The student was not stopping. And so he hit the brake. And you know how the brake goes through and then it connects by a cable on the other side and pulls the student's brake down? You know that? Well, at that moment in time, the U-bolt that was holding the cable just came loose and the brake cable came straight out. And so he had to yell at the student and grab the emergency brake in the middle and pull up to stop the car because it was going through the intersection unimpeded. And so that, it's just a reminder that failure, if it's a human endeavor, failure can always be a possibility. Okay. Okay. So the next thing we have application. We can actually have them apply some of the things that we're thinking about. And that comes when we're out on the route and when we're driving. And so you need to make sure that you continue to look and practice the application with the students so that they know they're getting it. Okay. So Tim, next slide, please. So the lesson includes instructive actions. What's an instructive action? Think in your head. I mean, with so many people, I can't ask you. So we lost volume, Mark, or am I still on?
You're still on.
Okay, good. So instructive actions. We want the actions that we're giving to the students to be directed exactly towards the objectives that we've outlined in our lesson plan. If we start going off the script, off the task, then what we're doing is we're giving them minutia or issues that they're not going to necessarily need for that lesson. Now, I realize for us, driving in the car is routine. We've driven for years, and so having this getting in the car with the teens is we assume it's routine for them sometimes. So we start talking, and who are you going to go to the prom with, that sort of thing, and all of a sudden we get off task. And what I want you to remember is your lessons always include instructive actions. They do not include extraneous action. Questions. We talk about questions when the students are out there. I'm very Socratic in the way that I do my lesson. And so having this webinar with all y'all is kind of a problem for me because I love to ask questions and I'm waiting for people to respond. It's like, oh no, you're on mute. So I can't get that. So you get that we have a lot of opportunity to ask our students, either 2 or 3 students we have in a car, different questions. And then we have activities that are planned. And those activities are expressly designed on our route. When you think about the route that you've designed, we know, for instance, that we may have 5 right turns, 5 left turns interspersed among each other. And those activities are intended to make sure the student covers those. Because what happens if we have a student who goes and demonstrates that they really can't do it very well, but I don't have a location to show where they didn't do it really well? Then what I've done is I've set myself up for liability, and I need to make sure I know where they are doing it so that I can write back to that. Observations, yes. Evaluations, yes. Feedback, yes. All of those. And the questions are not only designed to go to the student who is driving, the questions are also to go to the student who is observing. Next slide, Tim, please. So your principal duties are to ensure the safety of the students and the others. When we have our parent meeting at Tigard High School, one of the things, Tigard 12th School District, the one thing that the person who is in charge emphasizes over and over and over again is that we all have families that we want to come back to. So our primary role as a driver ed instructor is to ensure that our students are safe, that they don't encounter any untoward action or issue that may arrive on the route. Like, for instance, if I have a student who's been with me for only 2 lessons, I'm not taking them on the freeway. That's not ensuring their safety. I'm taking them in the neighborhood or on roads, excuse me, that are in the community. Teach toward the objective always. Don't digress. Don't go out someplace else and engage all students in the lesson. Ask questions of the students in the back. Or one of the things that I've had my students do is I've had them actually um, do commentary driving from the back. I see at the next intersection, I see a stop sign, so I'm going to check my rear zone. I'm going to come off the gas and I'm going to gently apply the brake until I make a smooth stop. So that's how I would engage the backseat student. Next slide. It's an opportunity to apply those concepts and behaviors and to repeat those and practice those behaviors. And it's, practice, practice, practice. It's so important. But here's something that I learned is that practice makes permanent. Perfect practice makes perfect. You see the difference? It's really important that we make perfect practice makes perfect. All right, next slide, Tim. They're structured from simple to complex. And oh, this is so important. Simple to complex. If I would have known about that young lady and her inability to execute a right hand turn at a slower speed, I would have structured that for parking lot practice. So I would start in the parking lot. I would go to the neighborhoods. Then I would go out to my 35-mile-an-hour roads. Then I would go out to my higher speed roads and practice lane changes and that sort of stuff, bit by bit by bit, increasing the things that the student knows and practices to a bigger and bigger and bigger amount of knowledge and skills that they're going to need to require to be successful. And it's behaviorally centered. I want them to show me that they can do it. They can tell me that they can do it. They can answer questions. They can do it. That's behaviorally centered. Outcome based. I don't want to have something where we just kind of go and have fun in the car. I want them to have an outcome that shows me that they've accomplished what they've done. And it's got to be on a pre-planned route for guided practice. Man, it's so important. So important to have that route. I didn't think so initially. I kind of poo-pooed the idea because there was a lot of extra work. And we had 4 cars at Tualatin High School when we start in the morning. And if we're all in the same lesson, guess what? We got a parade of 4 driver ed cars going through the same neighborhood. We're all waving at the people as we're going around and that sort of stuff. And so we had to develop new pre-planned routes that we could do with our students. And we had one instructor who wanted to do routes that he had developed and had put into practice for years of practice at our school. And we said, fine, just submit them so we have them and we know what route you're on. It's really important to know what route a student is on, because in an instant where we had one program manager call me and said, Rich, I got a problem. One of my students and instructors was involved in a crash. And I said, where? And she said, on an on-ramp on 205 freeway. And so she knew exactly where it was. And so she was out there, called an ambulance, called the fire department, checked out the students, made sure everybody was safe, called the parents. But she knew exactly where the crash was because that's where the teacher said she was going to be. So it's really important for that. Next slide, Tim. Select behaviors to evaluate, ask questions, observe performance, evaluate performance. So we have to select what's going to happen. Let's say we work on precision right and left turns. So I'm going to evaluate precision right and left turns. I ask the students to tell me when is it appropriate to turn right? What time do I begin my turn? What time do I straighten my wheel and begin to correct my turn? And all of that sort of things, those questions I can ask the student in the back as well. And then I observe performance. I watch the student do that right or left turn, and I see that they start their turn at the appropriate time. They start their term. Okay, I'm getting crazy here. They start their turn um, when they need to and end it where they're supposed to. And I can look directly at where that happened. I can evaluate it. Now, go ahead, Tim, next. Evaluate it, see what their perception is. Prompt them for other zone searches. Look for if they're looking in their rear zone, they're looking at their side zones, they're looking at the front zone, they're looking at their left, their right, looking at those different zones to make sure, inspire early smooth responses. Get them to start thinking about doing something sooner than later, and then diagnose a problem. We are really good at recognizing symptoms of what the student has done. And what we need to do is we need to diagnose those problems then and come up with a solution for how they can correct those problems. Next slide. And then your job is to look for changing traffic conditions. I live in a suburb of Portland. And when we took our students out on Pacific Highway at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it was stop and go traffic. It really blew our route up, because the student just gets involved and it's stuck behind cars, and they go a little ways and they make a smooth stop, etc. And so I have to find a route that's not on a busy thoroughfare, but one that has more open road and opportunity for them to practice their skills. And then the other piece is look for their performance. That's why in Oregon, we require an eye check mirror so that we can see where they're looking whenever they come up to like closed front zone. We want to check in their eye check zone to see if they're actually checking their rear zone first. Okay. And then we need to make sure there's this whole thing about obtrusive student observation. And it's like this, ready? This is how I would do obtrusive. So how's it going? You doing okay? You making sure that you're getting all your stuff done? That's a little obtrusive. And if we were in a class, we would have you all do that just for fun and giggles. It's pretty fun. All right, next slide. And then there's this thing about situational awareness. And I think it was Sylvia who talked about great military terms. This is a military term. And what it means is I'm aware of what the situations are before the teen is aware of the situation. Because I want to make sure that they can handle where we're headed. Okay. And so if their performance is okay, great. If it's not, then we have to repeat that. Go ahead, Tim, next. And then we got the evaluate their performance. Is it anticipated and early, gradual and smooth, delayed, late, or incorrectly? On time, sudden or abrupt, spontaneous or erratic, and no response at all. Can you see kind of a progression through that where the student is getting worse and worse and worse and worse? Okay. So really important for us to make sure that they're really at the top of the list rather than at the bottom of the list. Next slide, Tim. I'm kind of running. I got 46 slides in here, right, Tim? I got to get up. Now, positive feedback has to be specific and genuine. So, for instance, I like the way you used your target to change lanes, or I like the way you checked your rear zone before you changed lanes. That was a great use of your transition pay. And that was great timing on your turn to the right. Okay. Your observations are excellent. Okay, next slide or next. And if they're not, okay, positive feedback. You fall short when it comes to complimenting the driver for correct performance. Be specific, genuine, and generous with praise. If it praises, it stays. If it doesn't, if you don't praise it, it's lost. And so make sure that when you provide feedback, it's positive. And if it needs to be positive, or it's like, oh, dang, we got to work on this. Okay. Next slide. Now, coaching consists of talking the driver through key behaviors. So this would be a key behavior for stopping or changing. Rear, brake, target, trail, transition, rear. That's for a right-hand turn. So I'm going to check the rear. I'm going to brake. I'm going to target, and I'll trail brake through the turn. And then I hit my transition peg, and then I check my rears up. Okay. Now you demonstrate it, and then there's conscious practice of what they're going to do. So have the student even demonstrate that in the parking lot. And then you're going to explain to the student how to correct an error if they don't get it right. I asked some of you, or I asked all of you, how many of you coached before? And I used to coach softball, and I would get my kids ready for a game by practicing. Okay. And then if I saw that they didn't do something correctly, I would coach. I would coach them to, let's say, get in the ready position, get ready, and then take a step forward towards the ball, squat down, pick the ball up, pull it into your bread basket, turn around and throw it to first base. Okay. I would have the students practice that. I would coach through that. When it came game time, did I coach that? Or did I say, all right, you're playing shortstop, you know what to do? And that's where I would have the students. I would have the students do some of that work of getting ready to play the position or drive. I'd consciously practice it before we would go out and actually do it. Okay, next slide. Cueing is a different way. Cueing is where we actually say things like, okay, you remember to check your rear zone after you complete a turn. That would be cueing a student to for the proper behavior. Or I would ask a question. When do you begin your right turn? What's your reference point for your right turn? I would ask the student for that information. Okay. And it's a hint or a clue that prompts a correct perception or response. And then you allow the student to take more control of their decisions or actions. I tell the students all the time, look, I love riding in the car with you, but I don't want to ride in the car with you for the rest of your life. So I'm not going to coach you through all of these situations. Now, there comes a time when a student doesn't get it. So then I have to take them back and coach them through, like the girl who couldn't turn right at 30 miles an hour. Okay. But it has to be developing independence. Next slide. Here we go.
When we are stopped in traffic, what should you be able to see on the car ahead of you?
The tires.
The tires? Can you see the tires?
Yeah.
Can you see them touching the road?
No.
Okay. So the next time we stop, just a little more space.
Thank you for that.
Okay, how do you feel about your hand positioning?
It's very bad.
Okay. 10 and 2.
10 and 2 at all times.
I would love it if you would drop to 9 and 3. Or 8 and 4, better yet. Awesome, good job.
When has this been a thing?
Okay, that's cool. That's a good question, because 10 and 2 is...
Okay, so Devontae asked a question. When was this thing? Why did we move to 8 and 4? And so she's giving some information to both driver and student in the back. And they can come up with some new things they can take with them. Okay, next slide. So now, if it's not okay, we cue. We give them a cue. And then if it's okay, we again go back to positive feedback and say, nice, where you place your hands, that's perfect. Okay, so that's specific feedback. But if it's not okay, we buy them a bus pass and we tell them, good luck getting we don't do that. We just repeat the behaviors. But this time now, I'm going to go, instead of cueing, I'm going to go to coaching. I'm going to actually go to coaching specifically the behaviors until they can do it independently of my coaching. Okay, next slide. And then we repeat the behavior. So this novice driver training is on a continuum. It's concept, coach, cue, and competence. We have the first lesson, and then if we get back to it, we circle back and we repeat a lesson or repeat things that we need to, where we eventually get to the final lesson that brings us independence. Okay, next slide. And repeat, go back, go back. Finally, we're at the end, and it's time for them to end their lesson. Next slide. End their time with us. When challenged, when a student, I don't know if any of you have been challenged in that's good, Mark. How can we improve the maneuver we just did? That's great cueing. Okay, but when we're challenged, like Devontae did about the 10 and 2, because it's safer is not a legitimate reason for why. Yes, it is safer, but it's not a legitimate reason to the kid because the parents will tell them that, and the kids will say, "Sure, yeah, okay." But it's like the safety belts keep us in the car in case of a crash. As John Harvey used to say, and some of you will remember John. John Harvey used to say that you stay tied to your ride because, excuse me, just a minute. My wife turned on classical music, and I know that's a good background noise. But anyway, you stay tied to the ride in the event of a crash or a hard stop. And again, don't take it personally if the student challenges you. They're born to challenge you. They're building independence by asking questions and challenging you. Okay, so there you go. It's your turn. We would have you do this, of course, and I would probably have you do something into chat, but I'm running a little out of time. So keep going. We're ripping on this one, and then the debrief. So we're going to have a debrief, and what we're going to do is cover the key issues that were happened during the drive. Tim, let's move here.
Well, it's actually our time to take a little bit of a break. So we're going to take 5 minutes since we right here at a break in our PowerPoint here. So 5 minute break, get away from the computer, stand up, stretch. We know 2 hours virtually is hard. So come back at 3 after the hour, and then we'll get started again. We'll see everybody in 5 minutes.
Thanks, Tim.
All right, everybody, that is 5 minutes. We are 3 after the hour. Hope everybody had a good little tiny 5 minute break. Before we jump into this and I hand it back over to Rich, there is one thing that we need to talk about admin wise for this workshop. When you log on, your name that you have there is the name that we have on a registry for attendance. So if that is not the name that you signed up with, please change your name to make sure that you get credit. Most of you have your name on there. I see like Roy Dudley or Amanda Harrison or Rhonda LeBrun, you're going to be fine. But if you have something different, like that's an email, and maybe that's not the email that you logged on with or signed up with, please change your name to fit what you signed up as. If you need to know how to change your name, up in your box, just hover over it and you'll see 3 dots. Click on the 3 dots, go down to the bottom, and it says rename, and you can type it in there. So make sure you're doing that because we want to make sure everybody gets credit for being here. Okay, so make sure you're doing that. Also, I want to say hello to my Hawaiian brother, Sam Lee. It's good to see you on here.
Yeah, Sam,
it is soon.
Good to see you, man.
And also time for our secret word. That's going to be exciting. So if you're watching this on recording, a secret word, here it is. It's been basically freezing everywhere except for Oregon. I guess we did get below freezing overnight, but no snow, no ice really. So our secret word is going to be frozen because a lot of the country is frozen, or if you love the Disney movie, Frozen. So I'm done. I'm now going to let it go to Rich. I hope if you've seen Frozen, you know what I just did there. And Rich, I'm going to turn it over to you.
So my daughter was down in New Orleans until the night before last, and she just flew back, and now she's on a flight up to Seattle. But I found it fascinating. I said, you kind of dodged a bullet because they had 10 inches of snow down in New Orleans, which is absolutely unheard of. So debrief. The next thing is debrief. And we want to make sure that our students understand that what they did, they actually accomplished. Our objectives were clear, and what did we have? Did we have the necessary behaviors? Did we see the necessary behaviors to give them credit for the drive? So it has a record for the student, for the parent, and for the teacher to review. If you don't have record keeping, you set yourself up for liability. So I would really encourage you to have a very specific feedback form that you have for your students so that when mom and dad take a look at it, they know exactly what you covered. Because the other thing is, mom and dad could actually take the students out and practice on the area that the student didn't do very well. Okay, so they also have lesson objectives. You review those, go over those, but also send a note home with those, with the lesson objectives on those. So that goes back in your feedback form. And then fair and impartial feedback. The student needs to be known that they are being judged by a fair referee, umpire, whatever. Not by the ones that oversee the Kansas City Chiefs. Oh wait, never mind. I don't want to get into politics here. And then a summary of the student performance. How did they do? What did they do? Did they do it correctly? Did they meet the objectives? Okay. So I know that I might have some people in Missouri here, so I apologize if I offended anybody, but the Chiefs are my wife's favorite football team. So anyway, so let's go next slide, please. So it involves what did you perform well on? And that's the student. The student will be the first thing that they come up with is that they'll tell you how bad they did on certain things. And I want to say, stop. What did you do well on? Because there is something, even if they were nostril breathers instead of mouth breathers, they did something well in the car. And so I want you to think about what can I find that they did well on this drive and be very specific and how it relates back to the objectives that you presented at the beginning of the lesson. Then I think you ask them, what do you think you need to work on? And they'll be really quick to tell you that what they need to work on. But reinforce the positives when you start your debrief with them. Okay, next slide. So you encourage those improvements, but before you do that, you reinforce the positives about what they said. Yes, you're right. You used your transition peg exceptionally well on your right and left turns. That's a way to go. You had it. You saw your target. You saw your reference points. You executed your turn appropriately. Okay. And then you're going to encourage improvement. Next time, work on your speed control because sometimes you go a little too fast. Okay. And then tell them what the next lesson's going to be involved. So you're going to tell them, okay, now we're going to go into lane changes on the next lesson. We're going to practice those. So read up in your book or look what you need to do for lane changes and then end with a positive. I really like driving with you. You do such a nice job of really maintaining your calm and not having any anxiety about the things that we are working on. Next. So let's see. I think this is where Dominic, don't be critical. Don't criticize the student. Like, oh man, he scared the crap out of me. Well, that's not a good comment. Okay. They may very well have, but your job is to not show any issue with what they've done inaccurate or inappropriately. You've got to maintain your calm and your composure. Sandra, can you mute yourself, please? Thank you. So one of the things I had a student ask me, Mr. Hanson, do you ever get nervous when we're riding with us? And I said, well, I might, but you'd never know. And they said, that's true. I just never know. So don't debrief on pet peeves. Make sure that you use very specific things that are covered in your objectives. Don't assess anything you did not observe. And compare one driver. Don't ever compare students to each other because they will shut down so quick on you and they will begin to just not like riding with you. And you need to evaluate behaviors or skills beyond your lesson. Don't go on things that they've done well for something that we're going to cover later. Don't exceed your lesson objectives. Go specifically with your lesson objectives. Next slide.
Okay, perfect. So Devonte, tell me, how do you think that drive went?
I think that drive went really well overall.
Good. Tell me two things you thought you did really well at.
I think I did great on blind spot checks and overall speed.
Okay, good. Yeah, I thought you did a really nice job managing your speed, adjusting when you had anything blocking your path of travel or blocking your line of sight. You reduced your speed and you chose a good lane position to be in. Let's see. Anything that you are still working on?
I'm going to definitely continue working on checking into my 45s, making sure going left, front, right. And I'm also going to continue to work on hand positioning, making sure that that is consistent.
Okay, good. Do you have any questions from the drive?
No, I think I'm pretty good. Any other questions I think will be answered in class.
In future classes? So next time when we get together, we will be working on following distance. So being able to judge time and space. We'll have some really fun activities in classroom to prepare us for that, and then we'll do our drive. Joey, do you have any questions from the drive?
Nope.
Okay, we're gonna swap drivers and.
Here you have it. So Dominique does a great job debriefing the lesson. She covers the things that need to be covered, and she follows her objectives right down the line. And she also then before that she asked Devonte what he did well. Two things. Notice that it's two things. Be specific, and what two things or what things he needs to work on, and then she sets him up for practicing those and getting ready for the next lesson. So effective in-car lessons, they are planned, excuse me. They're objective based. They engage all of the students either with questions, worksheets, whatever, and they provide positive feedback, prescription for improvement, and opportunities to manage risk. And I think that's our last slide. Yes, it is. Whew. Now I'm going to give you a time to ask questions. If you would like to, why don't you unmute and ask me a question, and we'll go for 5 minutes about questions.
Hi, my name's Diane. I'm calling in from Upper Michigan.
Okay.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. Really, really good. I learned so much. I've got like notes everywhere that I've been jotting down. I've been teaching for about 2 years now, and I attempt to do everything you said, but I feel like there's room for improvement, especially in that record keeping bit. So now the way the school I work for is structured, we only give actual written feedback on 2 drives. The one where we give the pink permit out, which is the practice permit, and then after the final drive. Are you suggesting we do that on every drive and ways to facilitate?
So you're going to have to develop some sheets that will cover your objectives, and then provide those for all of the instructors in your school, that they can provide the same feedback on each of the drives that they're giving. Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Super. Thanks, Diane. Anybody else?
We have Beckley who has their hand raised.
I didn't. Oh, it's not. It's on the next page.
Yes. What is your opinion on writing an assessment of the student? In other words, taking notes during the lesson and then handing him a copy of it at the end of the lesson, in addition to everything you've discussed in the car.
See these 2 hands? I don't have anything in my hand. And the reason I don't is I've memorized my objectives and I've memorized my route plan. And I know how I'm going to assess my students. So my hands are always free for grabbing the wheel or pointing right turn, left turn, whatever. But I don't write any notes down until after the lesson is completed. And that means I have to have a pretty good memory of what's going on with what the student is doing. And then I'll write those notes on my side notes on the evaluation. Okay. Now I will also, I had this one person who didn't who had no memory. She couldn't remember anything. And so it was really hard for us to really have her follow through this. She said, I don't remember the drive. And it's like, oh, man. So that was a problem. So anyway, I don't put anything in my hands. I don't write any notes down. If I do, it's because we're stopped at in a parking lot, not on the street, because I still have to maintain situational awareness. Okay. And I have to be aware of what's happening with my students. All right. Does that answer your question, Beckley?
Yeah. So take a break if you want to write something down.
That's a great idea. Or take a short stop. We're going to go in this parking lot. You're going to practice parking maneuvers. And once you get parked, I got to write some notes. Okay. So there you go. All
Gotcha.
right. One more question and then we need to get moving.
There is a question in chat. It says, will you be able to provide an observation form? Do you have any of those forms, Rich?
I
And if
do
you
from,
do,
yeah, I'll have to see if I can find them and come up with them. Okay.
and then you could just email it to me and then we can send it out to
Yeah,
everybody.
sure. Sounds good. All right. Super. All right. Well, let's get going on the next one. And Tim, I actually got this next one to work. So I'm going to just go for it here. And this is 3.3. I want to verify that I can get it to work. Oh, yep, we can. Okay. All right, you guys, strap in. We're going to hustle through this next one. And so please follow along with me as we're doing. If I'm going too fast, if I'm speaking too quickly, as sometimes I do, then just let me know, okay? Because I want to make sure we cover the things that we're doing this. And so now we're doing coaching and correcting, and we're
Rich, you're
looking
not
at
sharing your
problems.
screen.
Oh, thank you. All right, I'll change that for sure. Okay. Now let's share screen. Share right here. Okay. Are we ready now?
It's still black. It looks like it's trying to do something.
How's
There
that?
it is. There it is.
Perfect. Thank you. Is it okay, so it's the one that has the full slide, not just my presenter view?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So now we look at problems and solutions. Okay. So the objectives of this presentation are common student errors, how errors affect car control, how to diagnose those errors, how to prescribe solution, and then our three concerns of traffic safety, and then what is my role. Okay. We're very good at identifying errors, but sometimes we don't know exactly why those errors occur. And so we want to make sure we're on top of that and know. So let's look at symptoms, diagnosis, and prescription. Whenever I go to a doctor, the doctor asks us about our symptoms. I'm sure all of us have had that time when we've shown up. Yeah, my throat is sore, my head is stuffy, my chest is congested, and they do a COVID test on you to diagnose if you have COVID, and then you come back with a prescription and to try and treat it in the interim. So symptoms, we have to identify those. But then instead of going right to the prescription, we have to do the diagnosis first. Okay. And so that's what we're going to work on today. And then in order for us to be able to do that, we need to have an awareness or understanding of the common errors that are present within our students and the struggles that they have. Okay. The three concerns of traffic safety are vision, motion, and steering. I can tell you this, we can solve any driving problem by looking at where are they looking, what are they seeing and perceiving, what are their speed control issues, and then what are my steering control issues. If I can fix all of those, or if I can address all of those, then we've solved the majority of every driving situation out there. Okay, so let's look at timing affects performance. We know that that students, when they don't have the correct timing, they can miss a turn, they can miss a lane change, they can do a bunch of different things. So we are watchful of their symptoms. We find their errors and also find what they do well. We see the underlying causes that presents in symptoms. What is the diagnosis? And then we develop a diagnosis based on that and their understanding of the behaviors and prescribe effective solutions. So, for instance, let's think of in terms of a student. Well, we'll see some symptoms, diagnosis, and prescription coming up. So I don't want to give it away. Okay. All right, here we go. So this is the star is where the event occurs. And the X is where we think the problem began. And what we have to do is solve that between the X and the star. And so it's a spot where the issue begins and then the spot where it happens. And usually we discover the error later. We don't see it developing. And good, efficient instructors instruction happens for each instructor as they learn to identify issues closer to the X than to the star. It's like your parents. The parents know how to diagnose a problem right at the star. Man, whoa, where they go way fast around the turn, or the student turns improperly and they end up swerving out into the right lane, the left lane. They see that as a bad turn. So that's a bad turn. They've diagnosed that as a problem, but they don't know what the underlying factors are closer to the X. And that's our job to catch it closer to the X. So your game plan training manual, you have a training manual. Well, actually, you don't have this one, but there are things that are early common errors and causes, and then you're going to diagnose and prescribe solutions. Let's just look at this one real quick here. Okay. All right, we're coming up on a stop sign, I think, or a traffic light. You can see that. All right, Joey's going to execute a right turn. Y'all see a problem there? I'm thinking maybe there's a problem there. And so when we look at that, we have to say, whoa, what's going on? What happened? We can diagnose, for instance, that he went across. I mean, we can see the error of him crossing the yellow line, but what's the solution to his issue? I can diagnose that he wasn't looking to his target area. And so consequently, he was looking at the yellow line, and consequently, that's where the car went. So my prescription would be, Joey, at the next time we turn right, I want you to look down to the target and see your transition peg. Cross the target. Okay. You gotta watch. You gotta watch. You gotta watch. We're playing Sherlock Holmes here, okay? Vision. Let's see what happens with vision. Okay. All right. I see some symptoms happening here. Put in chat what you think the symptoms are. Okay. Tim, you're going to have to help me on this because I've got both screens and they're both dedicated to the PowerPoint.
Sure. Lane drift, staring at white line, drifting, lane position, lane control, does not understand spacing on the side, cross white line on the right, staring, not scanning, drifting, looking at curb and maybe holding steering wheel too tightly, not looking
Okay.
far enough down the road, hence the
Okay.
drifting in the steering, short vision, tunnel vision, not looking up ahead.
Got it. Okay. Yep, you got it. Excellent. The big thing is we're not looking where we need to be going. And that's where I always love to have our students kind of practice this and say, okay, where am I supposed to target? And we can see right up here is where I'm supposed to target. And if Joey was focused on that, the car would go straight down the road. We had one student, the kids hated riding with him because he would go like here, and then he would go like here, and he would go like here, and the kids would just get car sick as they're playing, army driving, left, right, left, left. They're going right back and forth. And so what I did when I got him the next time, I said, all right, let's drive. I took him the straightest road I knew. And I said, all right, I don't remember his name. I said, look down as far as you can see. And so I want you to look as far as you can see. And so as he did that, what happened was the car began to go straight and continue straight. And the students in the back, they were forever my friends. It was wonderful. Okay. So this is the one where he's not looking further ahead. Okay. So let's go to the next one. This is another one where vision comes into play. All right. You ready? Here we go. All right. I need you to put into chat what Joey did there. Okay. You want to see it again?
You might have to.
Oh, sure.
Here
Yeah.
we go.
All right. Let's
Get some answers.
Okay. Yep. Unfortunately, you can't hear me because I'm telling him to create an error. I've already checked for him. Yep. Yep. Peter, you got it. Yep. Yeah. And Chris, no blind spot check before lane change. Excellent. So his vision wasn't directed toward where he needed to check, correct? And so what we needed to do is to make sure as I observed him, it's like I looked in my eye check mirror and I didn't see that he made that eye check. Now, the interesting head check, the interesting part is when I'm really truly doing my job, I'm already looking back this way and I'm giving him the instruction to execute the left change or the lane change to the right. And oftentimes I don't pick up his head check. So I have to ask him, did you do a blind spot check? Okay. So now that's vision. So we've diagnosed vision. If we can cover vision, most of our problems are solved. Okay. So, but this now is motion. And we're going to look at motion here. This is pretty fun. Joey likes to go fast. Okay. What's the problem? Put it in chat. I finally got chat up, Tim, so I can do it. All right. Overshot his turn. Well, that's true too. Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. Race speed control. Yeah, there you go. Control issues. Going too fast. Yep. Way to go. Thank you, Tyrone. Yes. Anything else? Charles says too far to the right of the road on this road. Oversteer. Well, he didn't really oversteer because the car didn't actually skid, but it did. He did have a fast turn. Yeah, going too fast for the turn. So that I have to diagnose. So if I were to, so I diagnosed that he's going too fast. So what's the solution? What am I going to have him do? Put in chat what you would have the student do. Oh, that's true too, Joe. Yep, not looking for dangers. What would you have Joey do? Pull over, yeah, and fix the problem. Slow down prior, slow in, okay. Talk about safe speeds, good, slow down. Take turn at less speed, explain what he did wrong, you bet. So now we've got it. You guys are covering it really well. I know that I'm looking at Joey and I'm saying, okay, so I might cue him on the next one. Joey, at the next turn, let's try going a little slower and let's see what happens with your turn. Why would I ask him to evaluate his turn if he slows down? I'd ask him because now he's going to get a different result if he slows down. Okay. All right. Well, let's go. Back up. All right. So next one is steering. Here we go. We've got motion covered. Here's steering. Okay, question. Are there any issues with Joey's steering here? Yes or no? Put it in chat. Okay, Peter, you say yes, but Keith says he'd look good to me. Gerald says, did this kid ever get his license? Yeah, he was licensed driver and he really helped me out here. Really? I'm sorry. Yeah, he was dodging, Brandy. He was dodging oncoming traffic because that guy was taking up half of his lane in Joey's lane. Okay. The turn was a little fast, yes. Okay. Lute says, not in control over the vehicle positioning. Could be. He did have to steer out to avoid the right front zone closure. And he had to steer to steer to the left, excuse me, and then he had to steer back to the right to avoid the car in his own lane. Okay, so good. We're getting some good things. All right, the next one is here's another steering for you. Tell me what he did. Put it in wrong lane entry. Good, Charles. What else? Turn right, stay right. Excellent. Thank you, Keith. That's right. Steered in, turned into the wrong lane. Good. Wide turn. Yes, JA88R. And then didn't take the closest lane. Good, Norman. Yes. Wrong lane. Wrong lane. Wrong lane. Getting it, not turning in the closest lane. That's the symptom, right? What's the diagnosis? What's the diagnosis? Okay, I'll tell you the diagnosis. First of all, he was going a little too fast. And secondly, he didn't steer into the nearest lane. All right. So I would tell him to, all right, here's the prescription. I'd say, all right, Joe, you need to slow down and you need to target in the nearest lane, not the lane over. Okay. Excellent. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh, here's Joey again. Poor kid. You know, if you watch Joey's face, you're going to see that sometimes Joey gets a big smile on his face because I asked him to do something wrong. Deanna's not answering. Get her. Oops, back up, Richard, back up. Let's do this. Okay, so I want a symptom. What he did wrong. Give me a symptom. What's wrong here? Once again, back into chat. Okay, turn too early. Short turn. Good. Thanks, Chris. Peter, turn. Didn't look. Okay, no, now we're saying, okay, if you said that he didn't look into his turn, then what you're saying is you already got to the diagnosis. Okay, turned early, steering wheel too quickly. Good. Out of lane while turning. Good. Too shallow of a turn entering the oncoming turn lane. Thanks, Liam. Yes. Okay. So here's what we're seeing. We're seeing that Joey turned early and he crossed the yellow line, the double yellow line, right? Okay, so if I were to diagnose the situation here, what would I do? How would I diagnose this? Now, come up with a diagnosis and put it in chat. You guys make my job easy just sitting here telling you to put stuff in chat. Look into your turn. Aim for your lane. Yes. Follow the curb to the right. Yeah, but that's looking a little beyond there. Not looking at a target. Yes. And is it Ute or Ute? Aim to center of lane. Okay, that can work. Turn to the left when the front end meets the center of the intersection. Good. Okay, too fast with his turn or wasn't looking. Excellent. Proper vehicle positioning. That's a big one. Start the turn a little bit later. Yes. So if I have very specific keys to knowing what the things are that this student needs to do to complete a proper left-hand turn, then I can find out what issues we're missing. Obviously, there was a vision control issue, wasn't there? And then see his head and his eyes. First, anybody will make the car follow. Okay, good. Hands follow the eyes. Good. That's Mark Brown. Thank you, Mark. That's great. So if I am turning to the left, I need to know the 14 elements that constitute a proper left-hand turn or right-hand turn so that when one of them fails, then I can give them a prescription for how to fix it. Or I can identify the factor that caused them to fail. This is where we have an advantage over the parents because we're informed. We know much more than the parents do simply because we teach this repeatedly and we actually understand the objectives and the behaviors associated with those objectives. Okay, we're going to go to the next slide. Your turn. Which error? All right, now you're going to actually have to come up with an error. Ready? Here we go. Just put it in chat when you see it. Put it in chat. Speed. Speed. Late break. Yes. But that's even speed. Did you see the flashing speed sign on the right-hand side? Yes, we're going too fast in a school zone. That's my error as an instructor. I didn't tell Joey to slow down. Actually, I told him to go fast because I wanted the sign to blink. But understand, he should have been down to 20 miles an hour for the speed zone and then making his stop because there was a student in the crosswalk would have made it a lot easier to make that smooth stop. Okay, let's see what the next one has for us. Oops, nope, let's go to the next one. Okay, you ready? Here we go. Okay, I will tell you, first of all, Joey was doing the proper speed here. Yes, poor lane positioning, but why? Okay, well, I'm sorry. You got to do the driving in actually this bike lane. Yes. Lane travel. Yes. RJ Buena Vista, SDS. I've got two of you on here. I'm not sure which one's which. Okay. Lane travel. Yes. We're not in the right lane. Anybody else? Not looking where he wants to go. Oh, Mark Brown. Now we've got a diagnosis. What are we going to tell Joey to do to prescribe his success in the next time he drives it? Yes, anybody? Target. Yes, we want to target. And in it, since we have curves here, we want lane position is excellent. Steering wheel, follow your eyes. I like that a lot. Okay. Search ahead. Look further up the road. Look where you want to go. Good. Look and steer to the target. Not using proper lane positioning. Yes, but now we're going to ask them to look and steer to the target. Teach lane position 1. Okay. Good. Excellent, Diane. I have to teach using lane position 1 because I want them to know their reference points for lane position 1. Ooh, let's bring that in. Okay, excellent. Excellent. All right, here's Joey again. Yeah, that's true, Gerald. But we're not going to this is our own video game here, and we're not going to show this to the kids. We're going to just show this to the teachers. Okay, here we go. Okay, tell me what the symptom was. Hard stop. Yep. Thanks, Norman. Speed, hard brake, abrupt stop. Didn't he see the sign? Rush into close zone. I like that, Peter. Yes, of course. Or another word would be charging a close zone. Yep. Didn't anticipate the stop. Yep. Hard braking. Okay. So now you've done the symptom and the diagnosis. Everybody put in a prescription for Joey here, would you? Not proper stopping distance. Yes. Pump the brakes. Well, we don't need to with ABS braking. Search to the far near side to side. Good, Charles. Look for signs. Give up ahead. Plan ahead based upon the signs, conditions, and road. Slow down. Not prepare to stop. Excuse me. Better anticipate your stops. Search further ahead. I like that. Brake early. And I would say trail brake instead of feather the brake. Use smooth stopping. Yes. Right speed situation. Yes. Okay. You guys are getting this. This is awesome. I love it. I love it. And here's the other thing I like is that you're putting it in terms of vision, motion, and steering. Dang, just be still my heart. This is so good. Okay, there we go. Next one. You have to observe what the students are doing during in-car instruction. Be familiar with their behavioral patterns and routes. Effectively coach and cue. Prescribe solutions. And most of all, manage risk. Okay? The best part of teaching is that it matters. The hardest part of teaching is that every moment matters every day. And so that's really, really tough. Here's one thing I'll tell you about what Coach Cower said from Wisconsin. He said, if students don't learn the way you teach, teach the way they learn. You got to figure out how your students are going to learn, and you have to get back to them and provide them that feedback. And then good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good gets better and your better gets best. All right. Do you have any questions here? And I'm going to close this because this is the end here. Okay.
Why don't you stop your screen share there, Rich?
Oh, no, I like sharing my screen. Oh, it's a beautiful mountain. Yeah, yeah. Hold on a second. Stop share. There we go. Perfect. All right. What is trail brake? Charles says. All right. If you take a piece of paper and you put it between your hands and you push really hard, what is that? That's hard braking. Okay. And if you slightly relieve the pressure and pull the paper up, that's trail braking. That's what that means. So when I press hard on the brake pedal, that's hard braking. But if I just uncurl my toes or lift my feet or foot up just a little bit, it'll take some pressure off and you'll still be braking, but it won't be hard braking or controlled braking. Okay. Does that answer your question, Charles? Got it. Thank you. Okay. Other questions, please. Let's have a question and answer thing here. And I think probably the best bet would if you put it into chat, I can get everybody's question. First of all, Lori Nosak, it's good seeing you. I haven't seen you for a while.
Any questions for Rich? There we go.
Anyone? Okay. Hello to you. Thanks, Lori. Can
Got
you
one in chat
get
there,
info?
Rich.
Yeah, can we get info on eye tracking mirror? Yes. Yes, we can. Tim, I don't know where Western gets its eye mirrors anymore, but you can get like a bicycle mirror or a suction cup mirror. You can get those at any, used to be Toys R Us, but they're out of business. I would suggest looking online. I know Fred Matola has a whole line on eye check mirrors and rear view mirrors and that sort of thing. So you can check on that. And so I would look there on his website, and it's skidmonster.com. You can check that out and see. I'm not promoting it. I just know I think he carries that material. Tim, you have any other ideas?
I think Paradigm Driving Solutions sells eye check mirrors.
Oh, Paradigm's still doing it? I didn't know.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And
What's the
then,
website for that?
PDSlogic.com, I think.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'll put that in
Okay.
the chat.
Thank you, Leslie. I appreciate the skidmonster.com website. And that's great. Okay. The solution
then-
for suffering. Okay.
Well, there was another question. It says, you mentioned transition peg. I think people are wanting to know what that means, because that is a very
Okay.
specific term for Oregon.
It is. It's also for some of the other states. But it's when I look into a turn, let's say I'm going to turn left over here. I'm going to find my target and I'm going to look through the side window at my target. And then I have this thing called the A pillar. Have you ever seen the A pillar on a car? Yeah. It blocks your vision, right? And so what I'm doing is as I turn, notice my head doesn't move, but my body does. And the minute this A pillar crosses the target, I know I can begin to straighten my wheel and also come off the brake and begin accelerating. Same thing up here. If I have a mirror up on this side right over here, and I have a target over here, I'm looking through the side window. As I turn, watch my head doesn't move, but what happens to the transition peg, the mirror? It moves, and the minute it crosses the target, I can quit braking and I can accelerate and I can begin correcting turning. Okay. All right.
We just put into chat a link for brakes. So no, there's not just cable brakes. There's different kinds there. So
Oh,
there's
I
the
know.
link.
I was old
Yeah.
school. Yeah, I think we're still using our old school cable brakes.
Actually, OS Brake also has mirrors.
Oh,
And I'm going to
thank
put
you.
another one into driver training products.
So have you been on the whole entire time?
And then once you
On and off.
Okay.
It's great to see your face.
You can talk to them and
It's great to see your face.
Yes, it is great to be seen. Yes. All right. Any other questions? I might have missed some on the Tim, did I miss some up above there?
No,
How
you
do you
didn't. I
teach
just
it?
see how you teach it. So Diane, are you asked about the transition peg there? So did Rich already answer that question? Or are you talking about something else?
He mostly answered it with the transition peg, but just he has a certain flair for teaching, and I'd love to see his, his very first introduction to a room full of kids that have never done this before.
Oh, you know what, Diane? That is a great question. And thanks for the compliment. I appreciate it. Keep them coming, will you? I'm always looking forward to more compliments. No, here's the thing. I have my students stand up. Okay. And I have all of them stand up and I have them say, and I use my laser pointer and I point to something on the far wall. And I say, everybody, look at that target. Okay. Now what I want you to do, and this is something that I do, is that I have them just look at the target, and then I have them with their steering wheel turn like this. I don't even have the transition peg up yet. Okay. So I get them into looking at the target first, steering to the target. And I love what someone said here. Um, and Rhonda, I'll get to your question in a minute, but I love what someone said here, and that is when your head, the car follows your eyes, and your hands cause the car to follow there, or something of that nature. And that's what I do. I get them looking at the target, and then what we do is then I say, all right, everybody, we're going to work on something called a transition peg. I want everybody to stand up. I want everybody to look at my target over there. Everybody's looking. I want you to hold up an A pillar. Everybody holds up an A pillar. Okay. And then I want them to turn, but I don't want them to move their head. So I say, look over here. And as you turn, as you shuffle your feet, stop right where you get to the target. And then once they get to the target, I say, at that point, start your steering correction and begin accelerating. Okay. Does that help, Diane?
Yes, that was great. Thank you so much. I
I
just
do the
did it.
same thing.
You weren't describing it. I was doing it. And
Okay. And then what I do with this hand is I do the same thing. I could have you all turn on your cameras and stand up and do this if you want, but because we have about 8 minutes left. Um, so
When I'm
head and eyes.
teaching, when I'm teaching virtually, I have the students stand up and do that
Okay, good,
with
good, good.
transition pegs. Absolutely.
And thanks, Mark Brown. Head and eyes first, body, hands, make us the car follow. Sure. All right. Now, some people talk about shuffle steering, and that was your question, Rhonda. I don't teach shuffle steering. And the reason I don't is because it's too confusing for kids to do this. You know, it's even confusing for you as instructors to do this. And so what I do is I do a pull push steering, and that's something like this. My hands go up to 12 o'clock. I pull down with my right hand, but my left hand's following the wheel. And then I push up with my left hand and I pull down again with my right hand until I get to the pace I want to be. And then I just back up. Okay. That's how I teach it. We call it pull push and not shuffle. Okay.
Yeah, I would say with Rhonda, it is confusing, but they come to lessons using that, but they're not doing it the correct way. They're
Yes.
just moving the wheel. They don't truly understand a shuffle steer. So their steering's actually really bad.
Yes, they are.
Pretty
Yeah,
rough.
really confused. Really confused. Yep,
Yeah,
for sure.
there is a way to do shuffle steering and do it correctly. And, usually police officers are the ones doing that for their evasive
Yeah,
steering
yeah.
and all that.
I will
It
say,
is hard to change a bad habit. Yeah.
yes, it is. I will say I use pull push instead of push pull. And the reason I was an anatomy teacher for lots of years. And the muscles that pull down are stronger and easier to control than the muscles that push up because it's just using my deltoid muscle. If I pull down first, I'm using my trapezius muscle and my pectoralis muscles, and that's easier to control. And then I push up because I've already started the turn. And then I finish it usually about here and then back up. Okay. Does that help?
I think
Okay.
that it helped until you started giving official names of muscles, probably.
I'm
Just
sorry, Tim.
saying.
I can't stop. I can't stop. You know?
Science teacher never leaves you, does it, Rich?
Yes. Okay, Rhonda. Good. I'm glad to hear that. Thank you. You're right. It's funny. I was helping my granddaughter do Punnett squares the other day. And that can work, Logan. Okay.
Spaghetti arms. You're like ruining my favorite food, Mark. All right. Well, that is the time we have today. Thank you, Rich. Really appreciate it. Just one more reminder before we let everybody go is you need to change your name if your name is what you have on Zoom is not what you registered with. And there are a couple names I'm looking at that are a little different, and I'm assuming that iPhone isn't your name.
No,
So please, now I see like there's an i4 and then iPhone and then it has a name after that. That's fine. But if there's some other names out there that's not what you registered with, please change your name before you go so we can get that as attendance.
Tim, I think
Also,
I have everybody that's signed in. I've got them marked
oh, you
off.
do?
Hmm.
Yeah, but
All
what
right.
about
Well,
RJ Buena Vista SDS?
that
That
means that
there's
Leslie
two
is
of them.
amazing at what she does.
Yeah,
So thank you, Leslie, for that.
excellent.
And then the follow-up email with your certification link has been sent to you. So you will have to click on that link, do an evaluation. There'll be some questions you have to answer to make sure you get credit for that. So make sure you are doing that. Give us time to get your certificate. It's not an automatic thing. Give us till next week. We do have to process a lot of things, go through things, verify things before we can send the certificate. So please do not be calling within 30 minutes or calling tomorrow asking where your certificate is. You will get your certificate. If you do not have it by the beginning of next week, then please reach out to us. Okay?
I have to say too, it's good. I see names down here that I recognize. Sandra Haley, I haven't seen you for a while, and there's just a lot of names that just pop up. And I wish I could have a classroom full of you because it's so fun teaching in person. But hopefully, you had a chance to learn some really good things here. So, and Tim and Leslie, you want to stay on for after we're all done here?
Of course. And then
Yeah.
Sylvia says there, Cobra, that's for people watching a recording. And I did say it, but I can't give it away right now because people watching a recording have to find it.
Yeah, you don't know where it is.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. And look for another virtual workshop coming in March. Hope to see you all there. Remember the ATSIA conference in Big Sky Country in Montana. Go to Yellowstone. It's going to be a great time.
It's where I wanted to move before my wife said, no, we're staying in Portland. So,
all right. Thank you, everybody.
Right.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Rich. Take care, you guys.
Thanks, Sammy. Good seeing you, man.
Right on.